Welcome to the Nerdist Podcast number, what episode, Katie?
600.
That's crazy.
I know.
What number did you jump on board?
I was trying to remember that, and it was.
Did you jump on in like the 200s or the 300s or something?
Yeah, it was in the 300s.
You were in the 300s?
Because I think it was like the late 200s, early 300s, somewhere around there.
Well, it's very exciting that you've been a part. You know what's coming down the pipeline is a hostful episode where we grill you about your life. People are asking for it. They're demanding it.
I saw the tweets.
And I said to someone, like, she doesn't like talking about herself, but we're gonna make that happen.
Okay.
Or maybe you do like talking about yourself and we just didn't ask.
I don't really care either way.
All right, good.
I'm impartial.
So you seem into it. Which is good. I just announced a big tour. I'm going on a comedy tour next year, hitting a bunch of cities. Well, actually, first I'll be in San Francisco at Cobb's December 11th, 12th, and 13th. So
that's my city.
That's your city. And then next year I'm doing like 16 dates as part of a tour that I have called Fun Comfortable, and hitting a ton of theater dates. And I believe the website is axs.com. We'll get you tickets to that. So please come out and see the dates. And then also, Nerdist has basically a little comedy school at Meltdown, at our showroom at Meltdown, offering classes in improv, storytelling, sketch writing. Dan Telfer is one of the people who teaches. He's one of the people who runs our social media stuff for the At Midnight Twitter account and Instagram. And anyway, go to nerdist.com/school for more info or to sign up.
I always hear them in class, and they sound like they're having a great time.
And I've run into people when I go to Meltdown Comics, and I see the joy and the hope in their eyes, these young little comedy seedlings.
Yeah.
But this episode, I'm very glad, was number 600. This was Joe Rogan. This podcast mashup was long overdue. But Joe, you know what? The thing I love about Joe is he's not. I guess he's a very funny guy, but he's also he's built like the Thing. You know, like he's a physically powerful man, but one of like the sweetest, most well-spoken dudes.
Yeah, he's a sweetheart.
He's such a great guy. He's just a good guy.
He is. So
I'm glad that we finally were able to have him on. His new comedy special, Rocky Mountain High, is on Comedy Central this Friday, November 21st. It's on at midnight, not our show at midnight. It airs at midnight. Or it's on direct.cc.com. So watch Joe Rogan, his new comedy special, or listen to his podcast, which is very popular with the kids. It's a Nerdist episode number 600. Joe Rogan.
Now entering Nerdist.com.
Finally on the podcast.
But I was just saying,
It took years
it took literal
to
years.
engineer this. Years.
Hundreds and hundreds
How long
of
have you been doing your
podcasts.
podcast?
Came together. 5 years?
5 years. So we're four and
Holy
almost
shit.
we're almost five. We're like four and a half.
We're going to be reaching a point where we're all going to be like, I've been doing it for 10 years.
I know,
It's
right?
Fucking ridiculous.
I love that, dude.
Oh yeah, this is the guest book. It's the Chewbacca this later.
It's just it's a skinned Wookiee, though. It's kind of like real sad.
But with
Especially
the
on Life Day.
bandolero.
Yeah, you took his ammo.
Well, that's how it lets
small.
you know.
This is just a small patch. Like he could have survived this.
Not likely. Infections and what have
The
you.
rest of them just turned into a rug.
Isn't it funny, though, that I knew exactly what it was? Like,
Yeah.
if it didn't have this on it, I would have no idea what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, the bandolier is like the essential quality of
Yeah, Chewbacca. Yeah.
That you could see anything sort of like sandy haired, and you'd be like, I don't know what that. But then you put this on.
You take that off, it's an Ewok.
That's
is technically
yeah, it's really interesting how that just. Well, I mean, that doesn't even really look like the bandolier. I mean, it kind of does.
You know
but
what
it's
it
not.
is? It's just this visual pattern of
Yeah.
brown, silver, brown, silver, brown. And then, boom, your brain goes,
That's
Chewbacca.
Chewbacca. Yep, that's
Yeah.
what he's become. This is what he's been reduced to.
Poor.
This is poor Chewbacca. He's fine.
I can't imagine Disney would ever release something so silly.
Well, you got to remember they gave Luke a new hand, so they could probably regrow his skin.
You're probably right.
Less complicated.
Graft him a robot skin. Ooh. His bandolier's all built in now.
It was pretty great when that happened.
When Luke got his hand cut off?
When Luke got his hand cut off, you're like,
terrifying.
how the fuck is that? And then, when they finally did pay it off, they're like, they just made him another hand. It's like not a big deal at all, it turns out. He just got a robot hand.
Well, there was this guy who got attacked by a shark in Australia, and it bit his leg off and it bit his arm off. And he was walking around talking, and he had a carbon fiber arm and a carbon fiber leg. He had no limp. I mean, his leg was from the knee down, and his arm was from the elbow down. I guess the shark just came along and just took both of them. But, I mean, he's gesturing and moving his hands around, and I was like, wow, we're not that far away
Holy shit.
from a real Luke Skywalker fake hand.
Did you see the Elon Musk tweet that got deleted over the weekend?
No.
Where he was warning everyone that, we have to be careful with artificial intelligence because within 5 to 10 years, I think this is going to be very, very bad. Because
So you think one of the
growing
AIs,
exponentially?
you think one of the AIs deleted his tweet?
Maybe. You never know.
Well, did you ever see Transcendent Man?
Yeah.
The doctor from China, the professor rather from China, who was calling them Artilex, artificial intelligence. He was referring to them as Artilex, and he was saying that if it were to happen, if it does happen, essentially you're talking about a grain of sand that has more computing power than any computer that's ever been created on Earth, and an entire being that's made out of these would be a god.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We're fucked.
Let's enjoy. So we might even make it to 10 years of podcasting.
We are fucked.
Well, Elon had a weird quote, too. He had a quote called, it was summoning the demon, I think is what he said.
Yeah.
That we're summoning the demon.
Can you pull the exact quote up, Katie? Look up Elon Musk, deleted tweet, AI. It's just going to be like, AI was pretty good. Haley Joel Osment was great. No, the other one.
When Elon Musk says shit like that, he must understand, how much responsibility he carries on his shoulders.
Yes.
Because he can't just, you and I can offhandedly say shit like that, and people are like, is that?
Yeah.
But when Elon Musk says it, people are like, what was that?
Yeah.
Because you're in charge of a lot of technology.
You were also in Iron Man 2
Yeah.
for a second.
for a brief, for just a quick second.
I mean, he makes the first viable electric car that, rich people drive.
Yep. Not just Ed Begley Jr.
Yeah.
All of them.
Yeah, because remember Ed Begley had that show, Something Green? What was it?
Oh, yeah, that green, Green Planet show or something like that. Yeah,
he's super into recyclable, sustainable living, solar power, everything. And so him driving around one of those cars was but now everybody has one of those fucking Teslas.
Yeah, but Elon Musk was he's so fucking,
he's amazing.
So smart.
He's amazing.
He is.
Which is why we should heed his advice. Everyone, turn this off immediately.
No, wait a second now. Let's not be
Get
hasty.
to your bunker.
The pace of progress is artificial intelligence. I'm not referring to narrow AI is incredibly fast unless you have direct exposure to groups like DeepMind. You have no idea how fast. No. The risk of something seriously dangerously happening in 5 years of time frame, 10 years. Yes. The risk of something seriously dangerous happening is in the 5-year time frame, 10 years at most. But that's not a tweet. That's
well, it was connected. It was one of those twit longer tweets. One of those dealies where you go over the 140
those are
characters.
Annoying. Yep. People are cheating with that twit
I don't
longer.
care.
I don't think they know how Twitter works. If you do, you shouldn't.
Gordon Ramsay always does that. Come on, dummy.
Come on, trim the fat, Gordo. Trim the fat. There's too much fat in these tweets.
He's very verbose. That Gordon Ramsay.
He's got a lot to say.
A lot to say about food.
Master Chef Jr. Oh boy, what a treat!
Wow,
that
5 years, Rogan. That's amazing.
Yeah, so as long as we've been doing podcasting, as long as Joe has been doing podcasting,
this thing that just
AI is going to
that
get
was
us.
just stand-ups aren't really on television that much anymore. What do? Well, let's start talking on the internet. And now that has become the cornerstone of all of our lives.
Yeah.
It's
Yours,
ridiculous.
Marin's, Kevin's, Corolla's, all of us, this podcast.
Ari Shafir, Joey Diaz, Duncan Truss. I mean, you can go down the line. There's so many people that are doing podcasts now. It's almost more are than aren't. It's rare. Bill Burr. It's rare when you meet a guy who doesn't have a podcast.
I know. And I have met, and it's really funny. I met, I never get arrogant about our podcast, but there was 1 minute where Greg Proops was flying. We were all on a plane to maybe it was to San Francisco Sketch Comedy Festival or something, and he was with Joel Murray, Bill Murray's brother, and I met him, and I was like, oh, hey, yeah, listen, if you ever want to come on the podcast sometime, he was like, oh, you got a podcast too, huh? Like, sort of like, and I was like, well, it's doing pretty well. Like, I almost got a little defensive, like, yeah, I know everyone's got a podcast, but it's not,
But it's still like...
Yeah.
No, he was right.
Well, they're definitely right. Yeah, but I remember when I would tell people I had a podcast, they would go, why?
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? I was like, it's fun. And we started doing it on Ustream. It was me and my friend Brian. We just sat in front of the computer. Brian Redband is on the show all the time. We sat in front of my laptop in my living room and just answered questions on Twitter, just fucking around. It was completely non-planned. It wasn't like, I think I need a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
It was, I just moved back to LA from Colorado. I was pretty bummed out that I had to move back to LA. My wife got pregnant and we were up in the mountains and it was just way too high elevation and we had to go back to sea level. And so I was loving the mountains. It was like so peaceful. It was such a total, complete polar opposite of like being in front of large crowds and cities and all the stuff that I was used to when I was doing stand-up. I was like, wouldn't it be great if I could live in like the mountains and then go down? And so I thought I had it wired.
Yeah.
So now all of a sudden I'm back in LA. I'm like, shit. So I started doing this podcast thing, just fucking around. And it was like, all right, we did it 1 week. And we're like, all right, this is fun. We'll do it next Monday. We'll see you guys Monday. So then we did it next Monday. And then we did it like a couple weeks later. And then we started putting it up on iTunes. And then before you know it, it was like this weekly thing that is taking over my life. You know, it's like I have a big studio that's just completely dedicated to it, and I'm doing
What
3-4
was in the studio
a week.
before? Did you build out the structure?
It was just a office. It's in an office park.
Yeah.
You know, like it's just a
So
regular.
you have it outside of the house. You just
Yeah,
go-
I had it in my
it's
house
like
for
you're
a
going to
while.
work.
I had it in my house for a while, and then we did it at the Ice House for a while.
Yeah.
But I wanted it to be closer to my house, so now I rent this big office space. It's huge. It's a warehouse, and it's got all this other jazz to it. And I just built this studio inside of it and made it kind of funky and did what I wanted to do with it. But I go to work. You know, it's my job spot. It's
How
weird.
many do you put out a week?
Depends. Sometimes only 2, sometimes as many as 5. No more than 5, I think. I think that's the most I've ever put out in a
That'd be
week.
excessive if you went up to like 7.
Yeah, well,
There's
doesn't
only
it
5 days in the work week.
Because it is kind of like, I know.
Corolla does like
5 a day
yeah,
or something,
it's-
right?
Whatever he does is ridiculous.
That's a lot.
And then he's catching contractors on Saturdays.
Yeah, how the fuck is that? And then he's doing stand-up or do at least live podcasts. Like, how the fuck does he have time to do all that shit?
I think that's all he does. He does that and then like jerks off on a car. Like that's what his life is.
Katie knows. She used to work for Adam.
Hey, he used to work at Ace.
Yeah, they put it out every week, and we would record every day, and then it would go up the next day. So we would record at night, so during the day he has time to do all that shit.
Oh, wow.
Still, where does he get that time? It's just too
It
crazy.
is pretty crazy. It's just the sandwich.
I don't know. Is that a great life or is that like
Yeah, of course it is, because he was
Hard.
doing morning radio before that. Morning radio is
sure.
a terrible life.
That's terrible.
Well,
You're
in
getting up at
retrospect,
3:30
yeah.
every morning, and you're just your schedule is opposite everyone else in the world.
Yeah.
And you're just tired all the time.
Yeah.
And there's so much pressure when you're doing radio to, there's just all the corporate pressure.
You know what he should have done is moved to New York and done drive time LA. That way you can get up at like 9.
Right.
You know?
That's smart.
Guys,
Or he
please
could
come
just do a
do
podcast
radio.
and own it all himself and
Yeah,
not have to
whatever.
worry about
Yeah.
content boundaries.
Yeah, well, not only just content boundaries, but also like the method of distribution. Like you could just kind of like just put it out any way you want now. Like our show's on Stitcher, it's on YouTube, Ustream, Vimeo, iTunes, regular MP3.
It's impossible
It's like-
not to get it.
Yeah,
there's,
it's easy to do,
there's no one can complain about not being able to download the podcast.
and you can pause.
Yes.
Like when you're listening
Yes.
to radio, like it would be really frustrating. I'd be listening to Stern or something like that, and some really interesting guest would come on, and I'm like, "Fuck, I got to go in this building. I can't listen to this.
Yeah.
I have to shut it off." And then you come back, you can't just pick up where you left off. It's gone.
And that's the worst thing, like, about a work day for some reason. Whenever I, like, would get in the car in the morning, I'd hear the same part of Stern when I was leaving. Like,
Right.
I'd catch the replay at the exact same second I got in the car in the morning. I'm like, what the fuck?
Exactly.
Stern's sort of
Oh, here's where Sal teabags Richard again.
Stern's sort of the original podcaster in a weird sort of way.
Essentially, I mean, certainly carved the path. If it
absolutely.
wasn't for his really controversial style of radio, it wouldn't have opened up that medium, like even the idea of that medium. It was like the initial foot through the door, because there was always like wacky DJs. Like when I was in Boston, it was Charles Laquadera.
Wow.
The morning, the big mattress. The you know Charles Laquadera? Yeah. He was like the big mattress with Charles Laquadera. Like that's what I listened to. I was delivering newspapers. Shit. He was like they used to have like a guy in every town would be like a big shot.
Yeah.
And now those guys are like few and far between. You got like Kevin and Bean. Yeah. They're still in LA. Yep. There's a couple people in like various markets, you know.
Well, when I go back to Boston and I turn on the radio and I still hear like Lauren and Wally in the morning, I'm like, holy fuck, you guys are hanging on, huh? You're doing
Maddie in the morning,
Maddie in the morning
is
still on. Yes.
He's still there.
Bob and Tom, if you're in the Midwest.
Oh, yeah. Bob and Tom.
Bob and Tom
They've been
show.
doing it for more than 30 years, right? Or something crazy like that?
Yeah. They're very nice guys, too, and it's a great I'm sure you've done the show a few times.
I've only done it once. I did Bob and Tom once.
It's a real nice formula that they have. They just sort of have the structure of the show, but then they just have comics come on, and you get to just be funny, and then that's it. But it gives them content for the show, and you promote whatever it is that you're there, you know, like dates you're trying to promote. But, they're good guys, but, you know, syndicated to a bunch of markets. But, you know, it's funny that, you know, that whole process, that whole infrastructure of like, we have to get syndicated, there's only so much bandwidth, so, you know, it's like, it's very difficult to get onto radio, or you could just talk into your phone and upload it to the internet, and then have it be readily available to everyone immediately.
I've done a bunch of them on planes.
Oh, have you really?
Yeah, with friends. Like, I did a series, podcast on a plane, where we just sit there, like we were flying to a gig, and I put the iPhone in between the two of us, and we just talk. And the fucking iPhone is fine. I mean, you hear that shh, like the plane, and the lady come over, would you guys like something to drink? Like, you hear all that, you know?
But it's kind of nice, because I think one of the fun things about listening to a podcast is feeling like it's very immersive. Like you sort of feel like you're there and you're a part of the room. So if people have like weird room tone, then it almost